One of my favorite things to do is make fun fall festive wreath attachments for my country style wreaths. Guys, my name is Tracy. I'm so glad that you're here, and let's get started. I'm using some chocolate poly deco mesh and a 14-inch wire frame and some coordinating pipe cleaners. Now I'm doing it the same way that I like to do. This is a 21-inch mesh, so I start on one bar and then I pull it down to the bottom and then I attach it just like that. I go in the inner rings about 8-inch poofs. Then once I get all the way around, then I'll switch to the bottom rings and do 10-inch poofs. And so then I have 12 pipe cleaners on this frame so far. So what I'm going to do then also is cut off about 6 or 8 inches of that poly deco mesh. I roll it up like in a spiral and I cut it in half. And so then I 6 different pieces I'm going to be putting in the holes. That's what I kind of call them, like in between where the pipe cleaners are. I add that piece of that to that. So then that gives me 18 pipe cleaners to put ribbon in. I'm using 5 different 10-inch deco mesh in this wreath. These are the first 4. And so what I did is I cut each of these at 16 inches. I'm going to just roll them up in a tube or a spiral and then put 2 of them together in one pipe cleaner. Then I'll put the other 2 together in the other pipe cleaner. And I usually do that in a zigzag motion so that I get the different colors throughout my wreath. Most all of these came from Hobby Lobby. The orange and white, I'm thinking I got that when I was at Wreath Makers Live and I picked that up in one of the vendors there. I'm thinking it was Trendy Tree, but you can get different colors of mesh at in the online shops as well as in Hobby Lobby. Okay, so then I just put them together like in an X pattern, and then I have all of my bundles ready to go. So then I put them into the wreath, as I mentioned, in a zigzag pattern. I go one pipe cleaner up, one pipe cleaner down, and so then that gives me the different array of colors throughout my wreath. Now this like I said was the 5th 10-inch deco mesh that I am using. It came from Hobby Lobby. I cut this one also at actually I cut this at 20 inches since it was alone by itself, and so then I'm making cruffles out of this one. So how I make my cruffles is I bend over each end, flip it over about 3 or 4 times, and then I gather it in the middle, and then that gives me the cruffle, and then that's going to go into those extra pipe cleaners that I added to make the 18 pipe cleaners for my wreath. And so this is how my wreath looks so far. And then now we're going to move on to the ribbon. These are the beautiful fall themed ribbons that I'm going to be using in this wreath. They either came from a Trendy Tree, you can get them at Craft Outlet or maybe the Wreath Shop or something like that. The burlap with the window pane came from Hobby Lobby. So I'm just making my bundles the way that I like to do, and so I cut each of these ribbons at 13 inches and then I dovetail the ends, and so then I'm just using my little tiny attacher just to make my bundles the way that I want. This is the 3rd set of ribbon that I'm going to be using in this wreath. And so I have it, and I love this one because it's checkered and it's striped on one side, and then it has like some like ticking stripe on the back, and that came from Craft Outlet, I do believe, or either Trendy Tree. Like I said, so many of those online shops have the same ribbon, so it's just a matter of finding which one has it available. So I just put these 2 together and make my little bundles. So I have them all ready to go like I like to do. So then I decide which set I want to go in which one, and then again I do a zigzag pattern going up 1, down, up, down, up, down, so that it gives me a really colorful wreath, really full wreath, and just really make it look really nice and festive. then I fluff out any tails that may be stuck behind one of the ribbons so that everything looks nice. So then for the smaller ones, or the 1.5 inch, I'm going to be putting some raffia in it. And so then I just pull out a few strands of raffia and I just make a simple 2-loop bow. I just kind of tie it around, making a knot. Then that is what's going to go in with those two 1.5 inch ribbons, and each one of those that went into the 20-inch kind of canvas looking mesh. And so then that is kind of how I kind of keep myself straight. I figure out which ones I want to go in there, and I want, some raffia for my country style wreath. One of my favorite things to do is make my own signs for my wreath attachments. Now, this is what I'm going to be using, and I have two of them here because I was working on two fall wreaths at the same time. So I have a few of these pumpkins left over from the Dollar Tree, and it is my favorite shape or size of pumpkins that the Dollar Tree carry. Sometimes Dollar Tree has different pumpkins, different sizes. So, these are just my favorite. So the paper that I'm using is out of a paper pack. It is from Miss Kate Designs, and it is the Give Thanks part of, or actually collection. And so it has these beautiful different patterns on there. So I figure out which ones out of this pack I want to use for my wreath. And so I'm, like I said, going to be showing you two of them here. I used one for one wreath, and then I had done another fall wreath and used the other one as the wreath attachment for that. So what I'm using is the Mod Podge heat transfer method. And so what I did is I traced out my pattern on my scrapbook paper on the front of the scrapbook paper using my friction pen. It is a disappearing ink pen. And so it just gives me the time to be able to cut it out so that it's not crooked. That's the reason why, I want it to be correct. And so that's why I just usually cut my scrapbook paper out on the right side of it so that I can get it straight. So what I do is I put a layer of Mod Podge on it, and then I let my Mod Podge dry. And so then I'm going to be using my little Cricut mini heat press. It is just a small iron. And then I'm going to use some parchment paper to kind of add as a buffer. And then I go along and, just iron it out, and then it kind of prevents the bubbles and just get everything nice and secure down. So then now I'm just taking some distress ink and vintage photo, and then I'm going around it. Now it really doesn't pick up here on this floral pattern, but I could see it, just in real time. You can really tell it on the these mason jars. I forgot to mention that earlier, but those mason jars came from Dollar General. I've had them on hand for a couple of years, never did anything with them until now. But they were like yard stakes, and I took off the little stake on the back of it. But these are just ideas. I'm here to encourage you, inspire you, and just look around and see what you can find. If this is something that you like to do, I just want to inspire you to create and make beautiful things. So I'm just using my distress ink and went around both of the pumpkins. Then now I'm just adding some squiggles around the pumpkins just to bring it out a little bit more. The mason jar is going to cover a bit of it, but it makes me feel better knowing that it's there. And have I told you lately, I am so glad that you're here watching and, following along. If you haven't already subscribed to my channel, I would love it if you would, because we are growing a great community here of like-minded folks, and I am so glad that you're here. So I'll continue to add some squiggles with just some paint and a little liner brush, and then I'm going to add some black Sharpie marker. I just do like that just to make my projects pop. Then what I'm going to do, then I'm going to, once I get all of this done, I'm going to add a little bit of additional glimmer. Now I am using some glimmer mist. This came from Etsy, and I will have a link to where I got that. And I just use the gold shimmer on these pumpkins. Now to wrap the stem with burlap, I'm using some frayed burlap from Hobby Lobby. And then to attach the mason jars to my pumpkins, I used a combination of E6000 glue as well as Gorilla Hot Glue. I put some clamps on them so that it would dry and everything was nice and secure. Now, for the embellishments for the greenery, what I'm going to do is take off pieces of this. These berries came from Joann's. This greenery is from one that I got from Wreath Makers Live, one of the vendors that was there. And then these right here came off of a garland from Hobby Lobby. And then I used my steel picks machine to add a small steel pick on the end of each one, because once I glue it onto my wreath, then it's going to be secure. Okay, for my sign, what I do is I use my favorite way of attaching a sign, and I recently just did a video. I uploaded it to my Wreath Basics playlist of exactly how I do it, what I use. I use those 1-inch cable ties that I get from Amazon, and I add the pipe cleaners. I add it on with glue on the back. Then I thread it through my deco mesh, and then I attach it to my frame. And if you would like to see a video of exactly how I do that, I will leave a link in the description. All right. So then once I get my sign attached to my wreath, then what I do is I make sure that there is no ribbon tails stuck up underneath there. I fluff everything out. Then I move on to adding the finishing embellishments, and that is the greenery as well as the berries, and then the other little florals that I have. So I go in between the flaps of the deco mesh. I use my Gorilla Hot Glue so that everything is nice and secure. And once it gets in between there, and those little steel picks, those have like little raised or little jagged edges on it so it doesn't fall off, and that my wreath looks really, really pretty.